there, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well. So, what you're about to watch is an interview that I was actually able to do with the wonderful creative team behind the most recent episode of Quantum Leap, the episode titled The Family Treasure. If you watch Quantum Leap, you know that it's actually a really great show. I had some rough spots with it early on in its first season, but as I've gone on watching the show, it's actually just a lot of fun and really recalls the days of the old Scotty Bats show, and has updated the series for a modern audience in a way that I didn't really think you could do in such an intelligent way as the show has. And this episode specifically was a lot of fun because it is an Indiana Jones style episode, go on an adventure, go and find treasure, that sort of thing, but doing it with a non-binary actor and non-binary character played by Wilder Yari, playing the character of Dean. But it's a really fun episode, so I was able to talk to not only Wilder, who played the non-binary character Dean, as well as Shakina, who was the writer of this episode, who is also, I believe, the executive story producer of the show and has written several episodes of the series before, including season 1's trans-focused episode as well. So I just got to sit down with the two of them for about 10 minutes. I wish I had more time because I had plenty more to ask them about, but it was a short, brief little interview, and I had a lot of fun. So here's the interview, and I hope you enjoy this and also the episode as well. Well, hello. First off, wanted to say loved the episode. It was a lot of fun.
Thank
So
you.
I'm excited to see how people react to it. The first question that I wanted to ask both of you was what was fun for me, especially in comparison to last season's very trans-focused episode, was that episode was very much like responding to the current cultural moment of like trans people in sports. Whereas this one, the issue of being like trans and non-binary, like those discussions came up as like part of a much more fun narrative that was just like an Indiana Jones style like adventure romp. So I was curious how both of you felt in both crafting the story and creating the character and getting to tell a non-binary focused tale that's part of a much more adventure focused narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I can say from the writing of it, I just want, I love injecting queerness into these tropes that we know and love and finding a place
Mhm.
for us where we haven't necessarily been able to find a place for ourselves before. So Quantum Leap gives us the chance to do that week to week in a different genre. And I was just like really lucky when I got handed this genre. I was sort of asked to create a kind of adventure treasure hunt story
Mhm.
and given the challenge of finding a way to bring a non-binary character to life in that. And I kind of came into it like inside out. I developed the clues first. Like I just went out. I was like, what makes a really great like treasure story? And I was like
Mhm.
in sort of like my creative meditation, and I got the clues first before I knew any of the story. I was like, okay, Snakes Underground had the Shamrock King. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
was like, okay, this is how the riddle's gonna work. But I didn't know what the dynamics were necessarily. And then I knew, the sibling aspect came into it, and I had the help of the writers' room and the showrunners. So it was just like we had a crash course. It was like 2 weeks from getting back from the strike to when we had to have a script.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was just like, I loved the challenge and the fun of taking this like kind of tropey setup that we know and love, the Indiana Jones setup, the Goonies, Adventures in Babysitting, kind of like, you know, teenage quest of it all. Um and then putting in this like, I don't know, non-binary sneak attack. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
wait, I didn't realize I was getting coming out story. I just thought I was on the treasure hunt. And
Yeah.
then we go back to the treasure hunt, and it's like that's what it is. It's like still
Mhm.
we're growing and changing as a family and doing the whole arc together, so it's really special.
Yeah. So important thing is puns came first, then the queer stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No, but that is actually really beautiful. And Wilder, for you, I'm curious what it felt like for you to be able to tell like that sort of like just have fun, tell the story about this family connection that being non-binary was like a source of connection through that. Again, usually it's a source of derision, especially in tales set not in the modern day. And so I'm curious like what you thought about bringing that character and that relationship to the screen.
Wow, yeah, it was such a joy, of course. It
Yeah.
was so wonderful. And I really give a lot of that credit to Shakina for writing a story that was about an empowered moment as opposed to a
Hmm.
story that comes from like, pain, shame. I hope you accept me. I hope I'm okay. Dean, when we meet them, is already like, this is me. This is how I am, and
Hmm.
I'm okay with that. But I do have to say also what I really loved about it was that it felt more realistic in a way that
Yeah.
like life happens while you're doing other stuff. You're like, you're looking for this treasure. Also, I'm non-binary, but that's what we're looking for, the treasure. That's the point.
Treasure's there, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not the whole like point of the story. We are more
Mhm.
than just our gender identity. So it felt really nice to be
Mhm.
able to be part of a narrative that was like, yeah, we're looking for gold. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Not to, again, I asking mainly about the trans and non-binary aspect of this, but that was something that I really loved about it. That was just so like just part of the story as opposed to like just being focused on.
Totally.
Um, but one thing I did want to ask you about was I thought one of the coolest moments obviously was like the binder, chest binder moment. And I'm curious what it felt like to you to film that, which is like very like can be a very vulnerable scene of like showing your body, especially in this way, but it also is a very empowering moment because we don't, especially in like media made for like wide consumption, like Quantum Leap, you don't get to see that like, hey, binders are this cool part of it. And then I'll ask the next question about like the other aspect of binders that after that, but I'm curious about what that was like to film that.
Yeah, I really loved it. Especially because everyone, I mean, I'm an actor, I'm a freak. I'm like, put me on a hillside, put 40 people around me. Like, yeah, I'll take my shirt off. That sounds great. But what I really loved about it was that I felt like I was asking, I felt really taken care of and loved on the set, truly. And again, a huge part of that is working with Shakina, having her on my side the whole time, and the costume department as well. But I was one that was like, I think maybe we should like actually bind. I think maybe we should.
Mhm.
And of course, nobody was like going to ask me to do that because it's
It
painful.
can be, yes, exactly,
Right.
yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I think this might actually be the right move. They made a binding garment that actually didn't end up looking right. So it ended up being what we went with. And yeah, so I found it really great, really empowering. And also it felt nice to do something that was like accurate. It was like, yeah, they wouldn't have had like a beautifully crafted, like flesh
Yeah,
tone
bought from
binder,
Walmart, you know,
you know?
yeah. And kind of speaking on that note, Shakina, I wanted to ask about like putting that important point about how binding could be dangerous and if not done well or properly, that I thought was like really nice to like get in there because we don't really hear that discussed very much. And it's an important aspect of it to just talk about.
Yeah, I mean, trans health is really important, and especially
Yeah.
when you're coming into your own self and there's not like a way to learn about things. We
Mhm.
get these like clues and hints from the world around us. So this was like, in service of the show, I'm trying to write a great episode of TV here because I love Quantum Leap and I like want to keep it going. But I also, in service to my community, have like, okay, here's one shot to get a little something out there, for the kids, and it's like we've always been here. We've always been doing this. We had unsafe ways to do it in the past, but we did it anyway. Now we have safer ways to do it. Talk to your family. Like, come out when you're ready. Be open. Be in your power. And I'll say in that scene, particular for me, the trope of the like trans mask person being exposed for wearing a binder and like being a liar and not being who they were and being a
Mhm.
that is like something we've seen in Hollywood movies like for literally for generations. And what I wanted to do with that scene is reclaim the trope in a way because there's this
Yeah.
beautiful iconic imagery. I mean, Wilder looks so good standing in the sunset on this hillside with this like tattered fabric, and they're just this like dreamboat James Dean non-binary like matinee idol, and it's like we
Yeah.
never get to be that, and we're that now instead of like the Brandon Tina story, or just one of the guys, or she's the man, or just some sort of like, I'm crying and I'm sorry I was lying to you about having breasts. And it's like, no,
Mhm.
that's not what this is.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it was a chance to just like spin that narrative and like introduce something new.
Yeah. Kind of jumping off of that. No, sorry, I'm just I so many things that I want to ask about that jumping off of that. But to get kind of like philosophical, because something I've been reading more and more about and been writing about my own stuff has been discussions of queer temporality and how queer people view time differently across like generations and through our community and through our own personal histories. And one of the things that I really loved in this scene is how Ben's relationship with Mason informed how they interacted with the character in the episode and like learning how to give like the language to what it means to be non-binary in that moment. And I'm sort of curious what you were thinking about like in that sort of just the wibbly wobbly timey wimey of it, of like just someone from the future giving voice to someone in the past, but then that can influencing the future as well, and how that feels very queer.
Well, you know, in the reality of it, I think that queer identity, we get these gifts of being able to name ourselves, and that
Mm-hmm.
usually comes from like an angel in our path who gives us the language that like we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that we needed. And so this is an opportunity to sort of show that that happened to me in my life, and now I'm like dramatizing that for the show. But what I love about Ben's journey, you know, with Ian, is that in season one in Let Them Play, you know, Ben learned how to become an accomplice, and Ian, you know, guided him through it, and ultimately got to like come in and see it happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this time we don't need to like tap the non-binary person for their emotional labor, because Ben's got it. He knows how to
Mm-hmm.
be an accomplice. He knows how to show up, and so like in that moment where it's like, oh, should Ian step in and intervene? Oh no, we have like a non-binary question. Who can answer it? It's like there is the like, you know, cis het accomplice being like, hey, let me tell you what I know from my friend and share this information. So that, I mean, it's just a beautiful kind of solidarity, and the fact that it happens, you know, through time. Listen, if you got me started on like the actual like psychological quantum healing nature of rewriting
I
our
would
history
love
in this
that
way,
conversation, but it'd be an hour, I'm
yes,
sure. But I would love
exactly. But I believe in
that.
it hardcore, and I think that's what we're doing on the show, you know.
Yeah.
And so I hope that in some multiverse way we have like, you know, restored some self authorship to, you know, our trans masc non-binary siblings of the past.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I am just about out of time, but wanted to say to both of you, this was a fantastic episode. You both did really wonderful, and I'm excited for more to come from both of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Jesse.
This was really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Thank you.